I made a tips video and I scheduled it out for this morning, and I woke up fully expecting the comments on that video just to be like, yo, thanks for the tips, like, have a good day type of comments. But instead, the majority of those comments were actually addressing a situation that Path of Exile 2, it pissed a lot of people off last night, and some of the complaints are pretty legitimate. But anyway, let's inform you on what's going on. So if we pull up here on Twitter, and we look, there was a recent patch that came out. Now, if you pull up the notes and actually look at the patch, there's a lot of changes in here. A lot of these are pretty nice. Like just right from the top, just to give you a couple examples of this. Passive block chance now applies to all blockable hits from all directions as opposed to just from the front. So this is just like having a shield, has something called block chance, but I guess it was only blocking shit in the front, which is like not the mechanic that was from PoE 1. I didn't even realize it was only doing this. So this is like some obvious changes. They have like things like the dodge roll can push people away now, and it's much easier to get out when you're surrounded. So this is full of like some changes that are actually quite nice, including some ultimatum changes that balance this a little bit better. Because honestly, the situation around the ascendancy trios it's not too great. I'm going to be honest. The ascendancy trios could use some tuning, but there was one change in particular that's pissing some people off. So let's dive into this. So trigger gems and energy gain. I'm not going to break all this down, but effectively what happened is there's something called meta gems in the game, and the meta gems are something that does something when something else happens. So if you have like when you freeze somebody, it casts something, or when you do a critical strike, it will cast something. Well, these are actually quite strong builds, and it's what a lot of people were using for like some of the top tier builds at the moment. So you'll have like a move that go off and hits a whole bunch of times and is stacking energy because you're critting a whole bunch. And then when the energy flows up, it will drop like a comet, for instance. Or you'll have people that are they'll attack with the staff. And when the staff has freeze on, and when it freezes a minion, that will summon, again, probably a comet. So you're seeing a lot of builds evolve around this. If you had seen some builds that were absolutely shredding, where they're just like ice commenting literally everything. In fact, let me show you an example of this. This here is my good friend Pox, and he's running a build that when he freezes somebody, it creates a comment. I mean, it's pretty strong. He's been popping off here for the last few days, so that's sort of an example of one of these types of mechanics. He freezes them, comment comes down, shits on them, GG. Now, after these nerfs, some people's builds were effective enough where, it's actually a pretty significant change for them. Some people, their builds are still kind of working, depending upon exactly how they min-maxed it, etc. But one thing remains unanimous, I've seen in opinions from the people whose builds are more highly effective. They're just, somewhat affected. If we actually look at the comments on the Twitter post, for instance, you'll see basically where people comment this: you nerfed my build mid-act 3 after spending 35 hours on it. Now I can't respec because it's outrageously expensive. What's the point of playing anything if it's to be broken halfway through? Now, it's an early access, and it's to be expected that they're going to be doing nerfs, changes, and rebalances, not just to the economy and the monsters that are too strong, but to yourself if you're too strong as well. However, that does not mean this gentleman does not have a point, to be honest. Now, I've been playing like a lot like degenerate type of hours, and if we actually look in the game real quick here, and we look at how much gold I have 281,000 gold. If I go to refund the passive and refund one of these points, you can see it's 5,600 gold. So if I was going to redo my tree, I mean, let's be honest, I'm playing a bad version of a warrior build. So if there was ever going to be a nerf, it's not going to be to me, so I don't have to experience this. But if I was going to start respecking things, I'm not going to be able to go like too far into the respec before I am completely wiped out. And that's for me, like, farming quite a bit. Look, I've respec just this little portion right here, and that's taken 2/3 of my gold. So one of the arguments that we are currently seeing as it stands is that if they're going to completely gut some builds, then they should probably give people the opportunity to respec their builds for free or for at least a reduced cost. Because realistically, I only have this gold from farming it up, and I haven't really been spending my gold, but expecting people to have that much gold just saved up just in case their build gets nerfed is kind of brutal. The other part is the game is definitely balanced around like you need to use all your resources. So you need to use your gold, you need to use, your sockets and your gems and blah, 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 blah. You have to use all of the mechanics, and that does include like using the gambler and stuff early. So if you're mid-campaign, Act 3, like the gentleman that was in question here, if we pull this tweet back up, he's mid-campaign. I don't expect this guy to have a lot of gold because he's probably been and using his gold appropriately as the game is expecting you to in order to complete out his build. Honestly, this really would not be that big of a deal. One-time thing, no big deal. But it's actually not a one-time thing. They seem to be, that they're going to be doing nerfs, like balance changes, revisions, whatever you want to call them, at a pretty, like, common pace. Pretty much the day after the launch, Supercharged Slam, they said, was in an unacceptable balance state, which, fair enough, to be honest. Another skill, then it was the gas dart or the magnetic salvo here, and then it was the gas cloud. So there was 3 nerfs in a row just days after it. Then you go up here, there was a hot fix related to a build that kind of ruined some builds for people. This is fair enough. I mean, bug fixes should definitely happen. I'm not arguing against these happening, but I'm just kind of pointing out the cadence at which these fixes are occurring. Now, I'm going to make a very simple argument here. I think one most people would agree with. It seems obvious to me that this game is catered towards and grabbed towards the demographic of people that haven't played the original game and newer players to the genre. In fact, I was playing it on Couch Co-op last night. I streamed it all day, and then I got off and went and played the game on Couch Co-op with my girlfriend in order to see what she thought of the game also, and she was doing just fine, like starting the game as well. I think newer players can pick up the game and play it. So when we're in early access, it would be great to not discourage some of those players that maybe picked up a build from somebody and then it gets nerfed or something. With just directly after the nerf, the people that maybe were affected by these, or people that are running classes that commonly use these style of builds, like maybe if you're running Titan cast on freeze, that's sorry, but you're running a sorcerer and we just nerfed cast, the cast on freeze, for instance. So if you're running sorcerer right now, you get respecs for free. Or if that's too complicated, maybe it's like every Sunday, okay, all refunds are 75% off. Or so just during the early access, maybe only for the first month even. If we're going to do it first 3 weeks, even just so people have a little bit more opportunity to kind of play with their build, we can remove this directly afterwards. I don't think it would be a huge deal. There are a ton of new players in the game. I would love to see the ton of new players stay in the game. Pretty much all the top posts about this right now are just memes about the situation. Your build won't be nerfed if it was shitty from the start. True. And I'm not saying that Reddit can't be a little bit ridiculous sometimes, but this is the same subreddit that has been overwhelmingly praising the game for the launch of it and is now somewhat salty. And this might not happen, and if so, just be aware that as you build your build, you might end up, getting a nerf if you're going to play what's giga meta and you're seeing a million streamers and YouTube videos about. Just be aware the more popular ones that are obviously crushing the game, like with low cost investment, one-shotting everything or looking super strong, that might just get nerfed. But I'm pretty much just in the same camp, obviously, that most people are, which is at least, make the passive tree a little bit easier to respec, at least, directly following nerfs anyway. That's just one man's opinion. I've seen some counterpoints to this already where people are like, well, the game shouldn't be made easier. It's no one's honestly arguing for the game to be easier. The reality is that the campaign is significantly longer than the Path of Exile 1 campaign as well. So if you're going to make a brand new character, because you kind of have to, if you get to the point where your build is kind of dog shit and you kind of can't respec it, you don't have the gold, you decide, okay, well, my build that I made is so bad, I'm just going to invest in a new character. You're honestly looking at, I would, for most people, at least 20 hours. And I feel like that's being very generous with the campaign just to get back to maybe in-game mapping. And that's kind of if you're going pretty fast. I don't even think I can do the campaign in 20 hours at the moment. So, it is not only, let's just say, a cost investment, but for most players, it's a fairly significant time investment to make a new character as well. If the counter argument to that is, well, the game shouldn't carry the people that don't have time to play it as well, it's okay, fair enough. I understand your counter arguments. Just don't be surprised when some people decide not to do that and their build feels bad and they just say, I'm going to, not play the game. Or wait for the game to be fully out. I'm seeing those comments too, I'm just going to wait for it to be fully out because, they keep nerfing my builds or what have you. It's also important to note that some of these aren't actually nerfs, they're bug fixes. There has been times when something is literally a bug that gets fixed and then everyone's like, oh, it got nerfed. It's okay, well, technically it's worse than it was. But anyway, that's currently what's going on. I'm playing hardcore solo self-found right now as of the posting of this video. Come on by the live stream. I am in Act 3 on a Ranger, and I'm going to see if I can try not to die. All right, love y'all. See you there.